So there's already been a lot of discussion at the conference about the future skills needed and the workforce that's going to be needed. And you've also heard a lot of discussion about the various stakeholders involved in this. So it's more than just the development of the vehicles themselves, but it's the process of operation and deployment, which includes different policymakers and private and public organizations, technology integrators, emergency responders, and of course the workforce. So all these stakeholders must provide input really to the deployment process, and we want to ensure that all the educational skills and information that's necessary is available both within the public and the private sectors. So this session is going to focus on engagement with stakeholders across the autonomous vehicle landscape in order to inform policymakers, educate the public, and develop a technical workforce. So I'd like to once again recall our panel, Katelyn, Magney-Miller, and Justin Johnson. So I can't see out in the audience, Katelyn. I think you're, oh, there you are. So I'll turn it over to you, Katelyn.
Thank you for the light walk-up music. Hello, everybody. Actually, I'm going to move around. Thank you for being here. I understand this is a tough session. It's after lunch. At least we didn't have like lasagna or something, but I know that it's tough to listen right now. So bear with me. I'm going to try to make a couple jokes, but we'll see how it goes. My name's Katelyn Magney-Miller. I'm the communications director at PAVE. I need a clicker. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what PAVE is, and then move into a little bit of the work that we do on the workforce front. So what is PAVE? PAVE is an acronym for Partners for Automated Vehicle Education. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that works to educate the public on AVs and their potential. We are member-based, so we work with OEMs and Tier 1s, companies in the robotaxi space, a number of companies involved in autonomous trucking that are here right now. Aurora is a great member of ours, Kodiak, Torque, and also advocacy groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving and National Federation of the Blind, for example, groups whose constituents see value in the mobility opportunities that AVs present. In addition to our members, we also have a couple of advisory councils. We work with a public sector advisory council as well as an academic one to sort of round out the work that we do. And I want to make clear that because we do work with the public sector, we don't lobby. Our goals are purely educational. And when it comes to sort of all of our members and our advisors, we're really kind of united on a couple of key beliefs. The first being that AVs have the tremendous potential to improve our roadways, particularly in safety. Secondarily, though, in order to achieve that potential, we have to have the public on board. We have to have the public engaged and trusting in these technologies if they're going to be a part of our transportation ecosystem. And when we look at public attitudes around autonomous vehicles right now, it's kind of a mixed bag. And now this data is from a couple of years ago, but we ran a public opinion poll that found that about 50% of folks we surveyed said that they did not trust robotaxis. That said, the same poll found that if folks could learn more about them, if they had an opportunity to get in one, in other words, if they had more knowledge or more exposure, those were two keys, two factors that could help change their beliefs and get them to be more trusting of these new technologies. And this is an interesting conversation to have in the context of autonomous trucking because we are not asking the public to get in an autonomous truck. But I think an important thing to remember is that for a lot of communities, autonomous trucking and freight is going to be their first interaction with an autonomous vehicle. If you're not living in San Francisco or Austin, Texas, or a real hub for technology, you don't have the opportunity to ride in a Waymo or a Zoox very easily. So this might be folks' first engagement with it, and it's really important that we bring that part of the conversation into the public dialogue so that people have a chance to ask questions and understand who they're going to be sharing the roads with. And I just want to make a case for public education before we get too far. Now, who here knows about click it or ticket? I'm guessing, can I get some hands? Yeah, okay, most of us, right? This is really ubiquitous when it comes to a large-scale safety campaign. And I'm going to take us all back to 1993. I won't make anybody guess how old I was in 1993. But that was the year the Click It or Ticket started. It started in North Carolina as a safety campaign, and over the next 10 years, it was adopted by other states until in 2003, it was taken up by NHTSA and became a national campaign. That first year, seatbelt usage was at about 50%, which is crazy to me because I was alive. And since Click It or Ticket started, it has boosted seatbelt usage in every state. It has driven seatbelt laws across the US, and it has saved hundreds of thousands of lives. And I think it worked for a couple of reasons. The first being that it used really clear and concise and easy language. Click It or Ticket is easy to say, it's easy to remember, etc. And another important point that I think you will hear throughout sort of my presentation is that it worked because it was a really great example of the public and private sector coming together and working together on a shared initiative. That's going to be really key to some of these points. So when it comes to how PAVE educates, there are a few ways. We do a lot of media and messaging. We do public service announcements, digital media campaigns. We do some online education, webinars, podcasts, etc. We also do a lot of events and demonstrations. If you recall a couple slides back, I shared that more exposure and more understanding of AVs can really help people get their minds around the technology and accept it a little bit more. So anytime we can give the public an opportunity to get in an AV, see a LiDAR up close, ask questions about the technology is really important to us. And lastly, we do a lot of public sector engagement. Like I said, we don't lobby, but if states are looking to enact legislation around AVs, it's important to us that they understand how they work. So that's sort of what we do in a nutshell. I'm going to go through a couple of examples. The first being one of our media and messaging campaigns called Clearing the Confusion. And to preface this, I want to say that in addition to AV education, we also do a lot of work educating the public around ADAS versus AVs. So this is an example of that. We worked with 5 other safety organizations to really create some common and easy to understand naming conventions for ADAS features, like emergency braking, for example, automatic emergency braking. And this campaign was really born out of a statistic that AAA found that one ADAS feature, like AEB, for example, can have up to 20 different names depending on the OEM. And from a consumer standpoint, that can be really confusing when you're evaluating what your car can and can't do, and when you're comparing different vehicles. So this is an example of a public campaign that we did. We worked with both private sector and public sector, and we're really able to help sort of clear the confusion, if you will, around some of these naming conventions. This one is a favorite of mine, more on the events and demonstration side. Last year, given all the activity that's going on in autonomous trucking, particularly in Texas, we decided to hold an autonomous trucking weekend over my birthday at the Texas State Fair, and it was exhausting and it was fun, but a lot of our public events can reach 50 or 100 people, but this was really an opportunity to give thousands of people an understanding of what an autonomous truck looks like. We had 3 of them, one from Torque, one from Plus, and one from Aurora. We had engineers there, we had former drivers, we had people from all areas of the companies talking about what these trucks do, how they work, what they're going to mean for people's roadways, workforce, which we'll get into. Just another example of a fun way that we were able to engage a large amount of the public. And last example here is more on the public sector engagement side. It was a CAV Innovation Day we held in Louisiana that was sort of born out of this desire for LADOTD to be more engaged in the conversation around AVs. They historically have not been a leader in that space, wanted to become more involved, so we came up with the idea with support of them and their economic development group and a engineering firm called Stantec to host a CAV Innovation Day where we would invite DOTD staff and the Louisiana public sector writ large to come and see and learn about CAVs. We had a Waymo on site, we had a Kodiak truck, and a number of other exhibitors showcasing different AV technologies, in addition to programming, like what is an AV, what does it mean for the workforce, What's the regulatory landscape, et cetera. So this is just another example of some of the work that PAVE does. And before I move into the workforce conversation, I want to share a few key takeaways before we move on. First, that automation technologies can really increase road safety. I think that is a key theme of this whole event. I think we can all agree on that. Secondarily, like I said, exposure and education to AVs can really move the needle when it comes to building trust and engagement from the public. A third one, which is particularly important to me, is that education is always a two-way conversation. I think education can feel very didactic. It can feel like you're being talked down to and you don't have anything to learn from the people you're educating. But I think if that is how we feel, we have lost the plot. I think we have just as much to learn from the people that we are interfacing with at the Texas State Fair that they have to learn from us. So I feel very strongly that education is a two-way conversation. And then lastly, like I said, partnerships between the public and private sector, what we're all doing here this week, are really important if we're going to be successful in this industry. So moving on to the workforce discussion, you might be wondering, Katelyn, why are you talking about workforce? And that's a good question. First, I was asked by Alex to talk about workforce, but second, in our conversations with the public, it comes up a lot. People are obviously and rightfully very concerned about losing their jobs. So it is important to PAVE to understand the scope of the AV workforce, particularly as it relates to autonomous trucking, and help the public understand what changes are going to look like in the next few years. So some of this is, we've already discussed over the past couple of days, but just to level set, let's get sort of a current state of the trucking workforce. Obviously, there are millions of jobs connected to trucking and freight in the US right now. As we place more and more demands on the supply chain, as we order things on Amazon and expect them to be delivered faster and faster, those needs are ever increasing. And as a result, the demand for long-haul truck drivers is very high. Unfortunately, the existing workforce is aging. The long-haul trucking industry has had a hard time recruiting younger drivers. And so what we are left with is a bit of a driver shortage. I know that we've talked about that already this week. And what I want to move into is that we can really supplement some of those gaps with automation. And there's a really big opportunity for automation. I think the US DOT estimated that US GDP could be increased by about $68 billion with the presence of autonomous trucking. So who here knows about the middle mile? A few hands. Okay, yeah, I think it's come up a couple times this week. The middle mile is really where we're going to see some of those gaps filled with automation. And the middle mile is the space between the first mile pickup and the last mile delivery of goods. And these routes are long, they're repetitive, they're pretty boring, they're pretty straightforward. This is where a lot of the automation is going to take place because the characteristics of these middle mile routes make them a good fit for automation. And so this is really where we are going to see some of these gaps being filled in automation. So when we look at how autonomy is changing the workforce, it's happening in a few different ways. Of course, we are reshaping local driver roles. As we supplement some of those driver needs in the middle mile, that means more drivers are having shorter and higher paid routes at the first mile and last mile delivery of goods. If you're not driving, that might mean that your responsibilities have shifted to something like supervision or fleet operations or remote monitoring. And then as we get more and more advanced in the industry, more specialized roles are being created. There's a lot of technical knowledge that goes into calibrating the sensors, being a technician for some of these autonomous components, and data analysis, of course. And these are some of the new job opportunities that are being created or will be created as time goes on. And what you're going to see with most of these roles too is that there is a clear path to growth, and oftentimes they are higher paying. According to the Chamber of Progress, 80% of folks working in the autonomous vehicle industry are making over US median wage, which is a great sign. And I think there's a bit of a misconception that with AVs, the jobs that are being created are in Silicon Valley, and they're for a very small group of very smart software engineers. And I think that's happening, but I think it's also happening across the board, across the country. And we'll get a little bit more into how that's happening. So what can the industry do to support these workforce transitions? I think there's a few ways we can go about it. In the short term, we can create certifications for things like AV inspections, pre-trip checks. We can work on upskilling mechanics on sensor systems, for example, or electric drivetrains. In the medium term, we can help with remote operations training, dispatch and planning, and new routing tools. And then in the long term, a lot of companies and academic institutions are working to create degree and certification programs for autonomous engineering and AV fleet management and a host of other specialties in this space. And these programs already exist. The Bronx Community College is working with Waymo in New York to create an AV training curriculum. In Montana, we heard yesterday about the Gallatin College program with Aurora. They've created an Associates of Applied Science in Photonics and Laser Technology. And then De Anza College and Neuro are working together in the Bay Area. They have an AV and EV technician pathway. I know Amanda from Arizona mentioned a program at Pima College yesterday as well. These are just a few examples of the existing programs for workforce development when it comes to upskilling and reskilling. And now, what can the public sector do is another important question. Of course, I think the public sector is sort of uniquely positioned to invite stakeholder input, whether that's establishing a workforce committee composed of public and private sector stakeholders, or really serving as a convener for these conversations. I think they can also conduct research, particularly at the local, state, regional level, to identify what their workforce needs and gaps are. And I think they can also play a role in building these programs in partnership with industry and academia to create curriculum and enhance existing workforce and training programs. Kind of a $1 million question that ties back to the work that we do at PAVE is how do we engage the public? And I think there's sort of an opportunity to right-size the media narrative that AVs are taking all jobs. I don't want to negate anybody's concerns that that's happening, but I think there's an opportunity for us to position AV industry jobs as creating higher skilled, better paid, higher growth potential jobs. I think we can emphasize the quality of life improvements that come with, going from a long haul driving career to doing shorter haul routes that allow you to be home with your family at dinner every night. And I think we can lead with facts. Fact-based research really suggests that this is going to be great for the economy and jobs writ large. And we also can lean into some of those safety statistics. I think most importantly, we have to foster a two-way dialogue, right? I think we need to hear people out. We have to hear their concerns, and we have to meet them where they are because, this is a topic that's very important to a lot of folks, and we have to take it very seriously. Last year, in sort of an effort to address all the things we just talked about, PAVE worked with Aurora and a number of our other members to start the US AV Jobs Coalition. Gary mentioned this yesterday, but it's really meant to serve as a central repository for research, policy recommendations, testimonials, videos, examples of existing programs, et cetera, on workforce development in the AV industry. I would encourage you all to check it out. The URL is usavjobs.com. And I'll share that on another slide. But sort of the key beliefs that unite the coalition and the work that we do are, as on the screen here, America is, of course, the birthplace of AV technology. We've talked about the current driver shortage, which is slowing our economy. There's a lot of opportunity to boost that. AVs are already creating good jobs for Americans. I would encourage you to check out any AV company's job board and see that for yourself. AVs are also introducing new jobs for more diverse skill sets. We've talked a lot about these upskilling and reskilling initiatives. And another important thing to remember that I think sometimes we forget is that AVs are going to be deployed over a really long time. This isn't happening overnight. It's not realistic to happen overnight. And while I don't think we can say nobody will lose their job as a result of this, I think by and large, you could get a CDL today and have a long career driving, knowing that automation is really supplementing your job. It's not coming to replace it. So that's it for me. Happy to answer questions after Justin presents. But if you want to learn more about PAVE, certainly visit our website or the Jobs Coalition website. You're also welcome to shoot me an email anytime. Justin? Or that.
I kind of liked you staying over there. That was good. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Katelyn. And also, there's a couple of ties that I want to make that hopefully I'll remember when we get there. But I really like the alignment between sort of what PAVE is doing and a lot of the things that I think are really necessary. Again, I'm coming from sort of a rural implementation perspective, so that's where all of our experience lies. And so I don't want to spend more than a minute. I did this yesterday, so you guys don't need to hear about that stuff again. But a minute talking about sort of the motivation behind like what the issues are in rural. So right now across the nation, we have this large percentage of people that have identified needing additional care, and particularly with transportation access. And in addition, so the kind of western side of the Go Marty project extends onto Leech Lake Reservation, and we do a lot of community engagement work with them and understand that the vast majority of people have expressed some transportation challenges, some who outright aren't able to drive or really can't use transportation reliably. So there's a big issue, particularly in rural, right? And Deer River is another town that we now, as of 2 weeks ago, started serving with the expansion. And there's besides the transportation access, there's also just a lot of persistent poverty. And so having the ability to provide some basic necessities to folks is really the why. Okay, so enough about that. Let's really talk about how and what the vision is for things like Go Marty. Really, the idea is to be able to provide that whole lifting up of someone else said yesterday about basically bringing everybody up together and trying to make the ability for folks to have access to transportation, and particularly in rural and tribal nations is our focus. And so we'll talk more about how we go about doing that. But and ultimately, I think the outreach component and the workforce development component are really intertwined, and they go together because the people who you're interacting with, the people who you're engaging with, are also the people who want to have those jobs, who want to have those skill sets, who want to be able to help fill the roles that are becoming available thanks to all the advances in technology. And so it's a double-edged sword, but it also is an opportunity to succeed in both places at once, which is what I love. So we do a lot of engagement with the community. I think this is really the reason that Go Marty is successful, is because of the amount of integration into the community and the amount of local support that we use. Both all of our drivers or AVOs are from the community. All of our supervisors that schedule shifts and everything are from the community. All the managers are hired from within the community, and we've got about 30 people on staff now that are all local people, and we have a call center that answers phones. They do a lot of other jobs on their call center, but they're all local community members that also know basically the community very well. And that's been a very important thing for us. So we do fun events like this. This is called Tall Timber Days. It's one of the things in Grand Rapids that draws like 2,000 people from out of town, plus all of the local residents who come and hang out for a weekend of fun. I want to say we've learned a lot about community engagement, because the first event that we went to, so we were just getting ready to do our first engagement session, and we thought, okay, they have this event called Weekend of Wheels. It's a car show, it's like an auction, it's a whole bunch of cool stuff. We should bring the autonomous vehicle there and start to talk to people about it. Well, we learned quickly that like people who are super into cars and oftentimes like older restored cars, or just they're also not the people that you want to like start talking to about autonomous driving, because they all love driving so much that this is their jam. And so we learned quickly a lot, and you say, education is a two-way street. Well, so is engagement, right? I mean, we obviously are hoping to inform and educate the public about what the program is, but also learn from them what they want, what they don't want. And so we've done that in a whole bunch of different ways. It's actually been really cool to see the conversation has started to transform from like, what is it that you're talking about? Wait, what is an autonomous vehicle? How does it work? To like, oh yeah, we've heard of you. Like, is it for us? Can we use it? Because that's a misconception we get a lot, is that because our focus is on accessibility for people that don't have it, sometimes people assume that, this is like a paratransit or like a service that you have to qualify for, but really it's for everyone, right? And so anybody who wants to ride can. And so now the questions have started to transform over the years into, how do I ride? Or, oh yeah, I love this, but could you go to this other place? And so it's really been a great evolution. And now that we're expanding into new communities, we've sort of started to see that process repeat itself. And also we've learned a lot about how to approach those situations to have, more immediate success. So most recently, the Judy Garland Festivals in Grand Rapids. This is where Judy Garland was from, and so every year they have a celebration for that. This is our team we went up and volunteered at an event. One of our local people who you'll hear more about from in a little bit, with the number one there, her name's Myrna. She's really a solid advocate for transportation access in the community, and so. So we were celebrating with them for Judy Garland Festival. They also were attempting a world record. So in order to really get the community involved in a lot of these things and really start to shed some light on kind of just how many people in wheelchairs and how many people with mobility impairments or disabilities there are in the community, and really try to get them out and interacting with everyone and keep them from really feeling like they're left out of things. They do a ton of really cool work, and so this was an attempt to set the world record for the most wheelchairs dancing at the same time. They needed 250, and they fell just a little bit short, but it was still a really cool event to see the community come together and celebrate things like this. So we talked about this a little bit. A lot of the events that we go to, some are just for fun, like Tall Timber Days, but the other ways that we can get out with the community is through events like Grand Rapids hosts something called Community Connect. Every social service and all of the different resources available to community members who are in need or know people that are in need, whether it's across the board from family to medical to health and all of the things, have booths at this event and just really can share pamphlets and just get the word out about what's going on. And I want to highlight the three people in the cell phone costumes, or the phone costumes, I guess, in the case of Cree there. They run the call center staff, and it's so great having them local because they get the community and they really understand how to help spread the word and educate and really build that culture that has been super important to the adoption and the use of Go Marty. And guys, it's working. So, I mean, the first year, we launched in October of 2022. The first year, we had 5,000 rides. We had maybe like 20 a day for a while in that kind of range. We made some improvements, made some changes, started to just really double down on community engagement and outreach. And you can see in year two, then we more than doubled the ridership, so up to 11,000. We're approaching that sort of like, one plus rider per service hour, and then this year now we're up to 14,000. We've got a few more, so we've given over 30,000 rides to the community, and our rides per service hour are up around 3, which is a pretty good standard for rural transportation. And our hope is that this continues to grow. Since we expanded there, we've had kind of a lot of uptick in daily ridership, but we'll see how it goes over the next couple months, and maybe I can report back how the expansion affected or impacted the ridership overall. But suffice it to say that a lot of the success is due to the engagement with the community, the outreach, and really just that education piece for everyone. So as we rolled out this new version, the expansion, we continued that and doubled down with all sorts of events in the new communities that we were serving, with the idea that if we can do what has worked in the past, it'll continue to help, and it has. And that's consisted of a lot of things, from listening sessions where we sort of just talk about what we're thinking, ask people what they want, and really understand, like, how do you want this to go as a community, and we also, and so that's been things like come put some pins on the map where you want the shuttles to stop, or come tell us about what's important to you. When do you want this to operate? We use the IAP2 model for public interaction, and that really helps us to be able to clearly state sort of what things are on the table and how we can get the best public participation. So people said they wanted larger signs. They wanted things that had, they want shelters at stops too, which that one we're working on with the city on. That's a little bit bigger ask than making the signs bigger, but we're working on thinking about what are some ways that we can make things truly more accessible. And so the first one is, we doubled the size of the sign, tried to make it more simple, and really put information there directly at people's fingertips so they can learn how to book a ride more effectively, and download the app so they can use that as well. And remember, when we first started this, we thought, okay, we're gonna have to answer questions about how do people, like what is an autonomous vehicle, and how is it different, or how do you need to interact with it differently, or why shouldn't you be scared of it? But what we learned quickly was Grand Rapids doesn't have Uber, doesn't have Lyft, doesn't have Simon Delivers, it doesn't have really any app-based service or any on-demand transportation. And so we really had to start like at the beginning, like here's how you use your phone to do something that then people could see happening in front of them, or you don't need to call the phone 2 days in advance to book your ride on Arrowhead. You can just hit the button, I want to ride on the app, and it'll come pick you up. And those types of things we weren't expecting to really have to get to that level, but it was super effective when we were able to send that message and communicate, and the call center staff would go out in the community and help people install the app and show them how to use it, and just all sorts of really good learning from that. And now it's super fun. So we added about 70 stops in the new communities, and people are so excited. Like this is Trisha on the left there. She is our community engagement person who is on the ground, and she met with all these folks and just gave them like excitement about the signs coming and the stops going live. So it was really great. The other thing people wanted was different hours of operation, and so we were able to offer that. We expanded from about 50 hours up to 70, and it was really, it's been really cool to see that the public has driven when they want rides, what's important to them, and this is a good way of collecting and really getting them engaged in the whole equation. I'm gonna keep going here. So another thing that's really interesting is we asked the tech center if they would be interested in coming up with some designs for Go Marty, and particularly the tribal flowers that you can see across the front and the back of the vehicles was something that they designed, and they drew out and said this would really represent our community, and we really like to see this. And so we made sure to add some of that to the vehicles to really help them see that this is something for them, and that everybody can celebrate. So I'll shift gears to workforce a little bit. We like to really think about, again, like this whole conversation about learning from folks, but also identifying opportunities in how we can help shape the next generation. And so we have this sort of roadmap of exploring, experiencing, excelling, and evolving. And this covers really kind of the broad range of things from student experiences to, which is maybe like an hour class or a one-day session with high school kids or middle school kids, just to show them all the possibilities in STEM and education and transportation. And then all the way up through internship opportunities, teacher externships, where they can really come and get an appreciation for some of the technology, for how the systems work, and bring some of those things back into their classroom, because ultimately our goal is to really help educate the community and bridge some of those gaps in where people are leaving high school and find some pathways to take them out into careers. And so this has been really cool to have those opportunities, and part of our grant from the federal government is to make sure that we deliver on this and help provide some of those experiences. One of them I talked about a little yesterday was making these student fixtures, and the really exciting piece of this was about a 6-week project with the kids in this class, and they really took it to heart that they were helping shape the way that the vehicles could operate and really helping us to bridge a gap in operations and localization. And so it was really fun for them to also be able to express themselves creatively in things that were put out in the community. And they've been maintained for the last 3 years, and they'll continue to be out there for the next 3. So this has been really cool. So they did a whole workshop where they brought the superintendent and a bunch of other community members in and taught them about why they were building these and what they were being used for. And then this is an example of one of them out in the community. So that project was really cool. And the kids got to come to our ribbon cutting day where Senator Klobuchar was there. She's one of the U.S. senators from Minnesota, and she helped us with the ribbon cutting and really to thank and congratulate the kids for helping out with this project. Another really cool opportunity that we have is travel training. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with travel training, but it's a way that folks in the community who want to learn how to use public transportation can request training on whether it's navigating a bus schedule or looking at available options or better understand how to use app-based services. And so we have a local travel trainer who's part of our team, and you can make requests on our website on how to use GoMarty and get a one-on-one session about how you can take advantage of what's available for the community. And so this has been really another great way for us to just build some of that rapport with the community and help bridge the gap on education. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was kind of the really cool feature, or the really just the big picture idea that GoMarty is, yes, a federally funded research project, but it also is really impacting lives in the community in a lot of different ways. And so we've got Myrna and Adam, Sarah and Patty, and these are all folks from the community who have different needs and have different opportunities to benefit from something like GoMarty. And so we'll start with Sarah. So Sarah's a single mom, and we get a lot of feedback from surveys that people send in. So Sarah's not a real person. I mean, Sarah's a real person, but her name's not Sarah, and that's on her picture, right? But she sent a survey in, and really there's an open text area in the survey where people can respond and just tell us what they like or what they don't like and what they were wishing for. And so it's really great to be able to kind of share success stories about the way that GoMarty's making a difference, and that this rural transportation gap is something that we really can impact. Another one is Patty. Patty really needed healthcare and access to healthcare, and so we're super thankful and excited that this is the kind of thing that GoMarty can bridge the gap on someone who doesn't qualify or can't use paratransit, but still has this really, really big need. So those are two community examples of people that gave feedback. Another one is Quinn and Adam. I threw Quinn on there last night when I was putting this together because I think they both have really cool stories. So these are the two supervisors that work for us now, that they manage all the driving, they manage all the drivers and scheduling and routing and everything. And Adam, so he grew up in ball club, and he's a father of two, and he kind of was just doing gig jobs, driving for Domino's delivery. He started working as a driver for May Mobility for the autonomous vehicles, but really hadn't had a full-time job and was really looking for just something where he could make some money for his family. And so he was an AVO for a while, and really we saw the opportunity that he was interested in coming on full-time, and this, you were talking about kind of step changes in people's opportunity, and he has worked now with us for a month and a half and has a really, really cool sentiment about the position, because he lives as far in a town. Ball Club's 125 people. It's on the reservation, and it's on our route now, and he's super excited because he gets to drive there and pick up people that he knows otherwise would have to walk for 10 miles to get to the grocery store. And he has now recruited a couple of members of his family to come and be drivers for us. And so now they have access to a job and they have a way to get there because of GoMarty. And so it's a really cool story about how, this really lifts everybody up and offers more than just rides, but jobs. And he's getting a great education in technology, transportation technology that he wouldn't otherwise be able to get exposure to as well. And so that's a cool story. And Quinn grew up in Grand Rapids. He went to the community college, Itasca Community College. He got a degree in networking, understands a lot about like back-end computer systems, but was really interested in cars. And so out of college, he applied to be a driver for the autonomous vehicle part because he wanted to get more exposure to technology. And he really wanted to find something that he could do without moving out of town because he loved Grand Rapids. And so he also has become one of our supervisors and gets to interface with the vehicle technology. He gets to learn about how to automate data going to the cloud, how to do analysis on how things are working, and really leverage a bunch of the networking background that he has in a technical job that he doesn't have to move out of his hometown to enjoy. So those are two pretty cool stories about just how workforce can work with projects like this. And then finally, I wanted to share about Myrna. So Myrna is a retired teacher. She grew up in Deer River and taught there and now lives in Grand Rapids, and I'll let her tell her story for a little bit.
Hey Myrna, how are you this morning?
BBC recorded this
yeah,
a couple
busy this
a
morning,
year and a half
isn't
ago
it?
or two.
My name is Myrna Peterson. I really like to be involved in all kinds of activities here in Grand Rapids. I work with youth at our church. I'm chairman of the Rife Arts Council. I was honored to be asked to be on the Governor's Council for Connected and Automated Vehicles. I sit on the Minnesota Council for Disability.
Call Lisa Arnold.
Good morning, Lisa.
Hey Lisa, it's Myrna. I'm in GoMarty and we headed your way.
Okay, we'll be out in front.
I only have one thumb that works, but I have a mouth that won't quit. And so I use that to advocate for people of all abilities.
Hi Myrna. Hi Rochelle. How are you guys?
Lisa is a force to be reckoned with. The two of us have kind of been co-chair people of Mobility Mania, which is a nonprofit that was established to make the community more aware of the needs for accessibility.
We realized that the number one issue that people had was transportation, living in a rural community that was number one, accessible, and number two, affordable.
My name is John Daggy. I'm the site manager at the Grand Rapids, Minnesota May Mobility site. May Mobility is an autonomous vehicle company that aims to make transit more safe, accessible, and equitable for everybody. With the GoMarty project in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, this is the first rural deployment that features wheelchair-accessible autonomous vehicles. In this project, one of the things that's really interesting to us is snow and ice specifically. What's slippery one day might not be slippery the next day. We tackle all of that on purpose so that we can improve the technology that deals with those circumstances on the road. The vehicles have sensors on the outsides that can read the situation that's happening around the car. Inside the vehicle, we run a process called multi-policy decision-making, where the vehicle is taking in all of that sensor data, then interpreting it, and then running a simulation on what the safest thing to do would be, whether that's just to continue on route, or to slow down, or to even veer out of the way of something. In our deployment here, we have autonomous vehicle operators, and it's a person that is behind the wheel at all times in the vehicle. And if there's ever a situation where they feel the need to take control, they can do so instantly by using the gas, the brake, or just by using the steering wheel. Currently, it's an 18-month pilot operation, but we're very hopeful.
All right, so that's a little bit about Myrna's story and also about some of the background for GoMarty. So I think that's a great opportunity to really reflect on sort of why we all want to see some of these systems grow and see them be successful. And again, like I said yesterday, we can't do it without all of these great partners, with all the great buy-in and support from the community, both the city, the county, a lot of the nonprofits that we were talking about there, and of course our tech partner and our back-end services partner, VSO. I think this is a really cool opportunity, and I think I want to leave it with one thing that also was a fun thing for the community. So Myrna was really interested in having like a jingle. She said, every good project has a jingle, and we can't not have that. So we did this contest where anybody who wanted in town could record a song or record a little jingle and send it in, and we would pick an official winner, and they get the song made and get it published and all that. So Jim was the winner of the Go Marty Song Contest, and it's funny, he's a retired driver's ed teacher, so I guess he was seeing the autonomous movement and looking for a different career. But no, he wrote this, and so I'll give you a few seconds of it here, and you can download the rest of it if you want. Maybe. Yeah, no thanks. All right, well, you can check it out at Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Music, or maybe if we get it figured out, we can do that at the end of the session. So thank you.
And so I think we're going to have time for a few questions, and so I'm just going to move into the audience with a microphone, and Jody has a microphone. So please, questions for Katelyn or Justin? Oh, I can see now. Much better. Yes.
I've actually got one for both of you. Katelyn, I've seen some union opposition to AVs. What is the plan to approach that dialogue?
I was waiting for this question to come up, and I think it is a good question. The union conversation has been, I think, top of mind for many of us in the industry, and I think maybe for better or worse, the union groups and industry have maybe been talking past each other a little bit. I think moving forward, there's an opportunity to have some dialogue and finding some common ground that would benefit everybody. Last year, PAVE hosted a listening session with the Teamsters. It was off the record with a gentleman named Sam Lush of Wabi, who was formerly on sort of the union side of the conversation. And it went really well. It was very civil. We had positive dialogue, and it was very productive. So I wish I could, share more with you on that. But I think more conversations like that, like really dialoguing face-to-face instead of sort of pitching past each other is, the logical next step, in my opinion.
Thank you. And then for the Go Marty, what do you think about diversifying into college towns and providing ride services to students who might not have access to easily get to their college and back, or their campus and back?
I think our mission is really to help provide people with lack of transportation access options for transportation, as well as research in the AV space. And so I think those are challenging use cases often, and certainly we don't have the experience in dense urban or college environments compared to rural. But I would say that there's a lot of players out there who that's their model is looking at that kind of thing, and certainly helping provide access to education is a noble cause. So I think that's plus you oftentimes find a lot of more progressive, open students who are interested in testing technology. So it feels like a good fit.
I do think we'll see more of that in the coming years, and there are a number of micro-mobility and shuttle service providers that are working on autonomous solutions, many of whom are working on college campuses. So I do think we'll see more of that in the near future.
Yeah, I got a question for both as well. So Justin, you mentioned that part of your outreach is tribal nations. What impact has that had on the tribe, and how has that been accepted within that community?
Yeah, it's a tough question, but good one. We'll see the impact. We've only been doing it for 2 weeks now, so we'll find out. But I think in the immediate, the outreach and engagement and education aspect that's required in a rural community, it mimics and echoes sort of the same interaction with a tribal nation. I think there's perhaps a little bit harder politics to navigate, but I think the output and the examples of success and the benefit, it can't be ignored. And I think the amount of outreach that we've done to the two communities that are bordering and inside of the tribal into the Leech Lake Band has really shown us that they're in this case very, very open and very receptive to the ability to get access to food, to access to medical appointments, and to really take advantage of what we're bringing. Now, I mean, we're in a fairly unique position because it's free, right? It's free for them. It's all funded through the federal program, and so sometimes, depending on what the model looks like, you have some additional challenges there. But
Thank you. I think there's a real opportunity there. So, Katelyn, has PAVE been involved in legislative outreach as far as engagements and maybe trying to bridge the gap between like the workforce and the regulators of automation?
Yeah, there's, like I said, we don't engage in any lobbying, but our members, who I talked a little bit about at the beginning, are very interested in engaging with legislators and, of course, with a lot of legislation on the table around AVs. We've done a lot of one-day AV 101 type workshops where we cover the technology basics, the regulatory landscape, and in every case, workforce development is a presentation or a panel discussion that gets a lot of questions. So that is something that we've prioritized and will continue to prioritize in the coming years and months.
Okay. Well, Katelyn, I'd like to just pose a general question to you. Here in North Dakota, we have a large university system. We have 11 colleges and a lot of technical and community colleges. We also have a big tribal college system of 5 tribal colleges. So if we were to want to look at some opportunities to build opportunities for students in North Dakota. So we have a curriculum that would maybe lead to certification or to a 2-year degree. How would we be able to partner with PAVE and the autonomous trucking industry to really get started so that by the time the industry really gets here, then we've got some upskilling of our workforce already going?
That's a good question. I think as a starting point, it's great. And if you check out the Jobs Coalition website, there are a number of existing programs listed, some of which I talked about. So I would take a look at some of those. PAVE is sort of toying with the idea of working with a number of our members and partners to create more of a standardized certification program or an apprenticeship program that could be applied to a number of these different schools that might work for a number of different, AV use cases. So happy to chat further offline. I don't have anything tangible to share with you yet, but certainly start by taking a look at the existing programs out there and just, to scope it out at least initially.
Okay, wonderful. Other questions? If not, let's give this panel a great round of applause. Thank you so much, Katelyn. Thank you, Justin.